Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. How are all you FX warriors doing today? Very interesting day we're having in the market. Last week we talked about a relief rally in S&Ps that would be coupled with dollar weakness. That scenario played out. Anyone recall that? That was here last week. Although I did my webinar on a Thursday. Good evening, Mayor. Thank you very much, Keller. Appreciate your memory. Okay, so we've had this relief rally, and S&Ps have sold off, dollars being well bid. I actually tweeted that I thought the dollar bears would be disappointed by Bernanke, and that seems to have been the case for at least a short-term bounce in the dollar. Sell-off in risk assets, equities, commodities, and potential at least swing-type trade lows set up in U.S. dollar Swiss, U.S. dollar yen. So let's look at the pictures. Want to thank everyone for showing up. And does anyone in the room know what their most valuable currency is? Anyone want to hazard a guess? You think it's the yuan or the euro? What's your most valuable currency? Rafa, do you know? Crystal? Wendy? Fernando, you know. Peace of mind, that's good to have. The Swiss, maybe for a few hundred pips it is. The euro, maybe from 142.50 it is. But for me, my most valuable currency and yours is time. So I want to thank you for spending some of that with me. I hope that you learned something during this short time we spend together and that you can apply it to what you've already learned on your own, on your journey to becoming a good trader. Okay? So let's start off with the S&P here. It's coming at you. Okay? Visible to everybody. So here's where we were last Thursday. I thought that they would try and make the well-publicized 200-day moving average hold in the S&Ps, which is what happened. I said at least a relief rally, 1290, 1300, and we have a low reversal happening here today after starting off higher, and as the S&Ps reversed, the dollar began to rally and euro reversed. Cable I talked about last week being the most vulnerable one. That had the most serious damage. Looks like it's breaking down to me on a weekly basis. And now my 158 targets are looking a lot more realistic than they were. And even talked about last week a rally in cable back to 62.50, and we got up to about 62.70. So here's the question. Have we topped this relief rally and we're going to make new lows? Or is this just going to be a pullback and put in a higher low? So that's going to be the key to the extent of this move up in the dollar is what happens to risk pairs here. I actually think it's a little bit too pat for that 200-day moving average to hold. So my bias is that we're going to take out these lows, which means there could be a fairly substantial rally in the dollar. Initially, I'm just looking for maybe 142, worst case scenario in euro. We'll get to those targets when I talk about the individual pairs. So that's the S&P scenario. Here's the Dixie SEP contract. Nice little reversal day. You know, if you want to be a dollar bull, is the Dixie chart showing? Or do I need to refresh? Do you have it, Mayor? You see June dollar index, September dollar index? Okay. So this was a nice little pullback, something that we talked about last week. I believe we were here. This was last Thursday. Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right. So that was a pretty good call, looking for the dollar to come off. It's corrected. I didn't do the fibs on it, but this would be a good place for this pullback to end and for us to begin to attempt another rally up here. And right now I wouldn't be short the dollar. If not long, I wouldn't be short the dollar. There's at least some type of bounce to correct this decline, and you can't rule out that we're putting in a successive higher lows, and this could be the second higher low, right? Here's your first higher low, and this low is above here. So you have to give the dollar the benefit of the doubt. I don't think a lot of people are right now. I still think there's a lot of dollar bearishness despite what's happening in Greece, and I could even make the case for the euro to go to 142 and then rally up towards 150. That's a possibility, and that would imply that the stock indexes are not going to get hammered and that we're just going to have a pullback before we even make an attempt towards new highs sometime this summer. But I lean more towards the S&P's taking out the 200-day, maybe taking out the 1220 level and trading somewhere around 1180. I think that's when the dollar will be a better short. So if you want to write that S&P number down, to me it's around 1180. Okay? Let's just take a look at the weekly chart here. And then the question that I ask people to start asking themselves when they look at a chart is, where are the stops? Okay? Really held the mid-Boley band nice reversal week to the upside. So in my work, of course, there's going to be stops under today's low. And there's going to be sell stops here, sell stops here. But here are major buy stops, okay? We start taking out 76.50, and then you're talking more like 78, 78.50, which, when you look at the weekly, is where the top band comes in. So I still think that there's a possibility we're going to make this move up towards 78, and then the dollar may be run into some problems again, and perhaps the equity market begins to terminate this correction, and we have some type of summer rally. So that's a possibility. But I think that before I want to press the short side of the dollar, I'm going to trade the long side of the dollar and looking for Dixie to trade up towards the 78 level. You want to write that number down? Okay. All right, let's look at the individual pairs now. I usually start off with USD CAD. Here's where we were last Thursday. Let me refresh it. Looking at the 1 hour of USD CAD. So we were doing the webinar, and I looked at the 4 hour, and I saw this high up here not being confirmed. What I mean by non-confirmation is the market made a new high without the RSI confirming the new high. So it's another reason I turned negative the dollar. Canada has sold off. I still think there's a chance that we're going to challenge these lows, maybe even these lows before it becomes a better buy, but we got that sell-off. I wouldn't press the short side of Canada either, but I am looking to be a buyer here. It's done nothing right on the daily, so I still think that there's potential for it to take the stops out. Where are the stops in Canada? They're here. Sell stops under 96.69. Again, under this low, 96.85. So you can't rule out the potential of Canada selling off to at least clean out the longs under these lows. And where the buy stops, not as many, of course, above the high right here, and then you take the time frame down. They took out almost all the buy stops on this spike that we had last Thursday. The only buy stops that I could come up with besides those is all the way back here at the 99.70 level, which I believe eventually we're going to get to. Any questions on my take in Canada here? Okay, very well. Moving over to Euro USD. Where are the stops? What was the key question that I brought up last week? If I were to be long this market, where would my sell stop be? Of course, they took out a lot of these, this low right here, 143.44. They took out the stops. Okay, so we may have a bounce here in Euro, but after today's action today, and the rally that we had from when we talked last week, last Thursday, Euro was in this zone here. So we had a very nice rally. So you would say that there's probably more sell stops underneath the market than buy stops for new shorts who came in here. So your buy stops are above today's highs. But many more sell stops. You're going to have sell stops here. You're going to have sell stops here. Here, and maybe they can get to these. That's 141.90. So at the minimum, with what I showed you in the dollar, I view any rallies in Euro right now as selling opportunities until we correct back down. I'm looking for about 142.50 to 142 in the Euro in the coming days. So my bias now, after my bias was looking for the dollar to weaken with the S&Ps, is now for the Euro to weaken as the S&Ps weaken. So my view is to look to sell rallies, and I think you could look for some type of retracement move down here. So at least short term, possibly intermediate term, I've turned negative on this. As a stop hunter, I think there are more people to shake out that are long the market than people that are short this market. The people that were getting short because of Greece were squeezed all last week. All last week. Greece news. Okay? They've been squeezed for a long time. So now I think the pressure is going to be on the longs in the coming days, and that the quants and the commercial banks are going to be shopping for stops underneath the market. Another indicator on the hourly was, do you notice this RSI here? Okay. New price high, lower RSI reading. So we've been diverging for quite some time on the hourly chart, a couple of days. And do you remember my rule for trading turning points, looking for tops based upon divergences? Anyone remember? Rob, you've been to a few of these webinars. What's my rule? What are your highest probability stop hunts? That's Rusty. Your highest probability stop hunts, when do they occur? Okay, it's when the RSI is above 30. Under 30 shows too much downside pressure, although it did put in a bottom here doing that. But your better signals are when you're looking to bottom pick a market, is when the RSI reading is above 30, and your more negative ones are when the RSI is under 70. Okay? Last week I talked about a rally in cable back to the 62.50 level. I'd shown everyone that we had a pretty negative week, and we were breaking down out of this is a weekly chart, out of a rising wedge formation. The implications are pretty negative. So I'm looking for about 158 to 153 back down into this zone. Much weaker picture than euro. Look at that weekly chart. And look at this weekly chart. Yeah, but still have a positive candle in euro. Look at that candle. You have two negative candles and a breakdown in cable. So my preferred short on strength is going to be which one? This or this? This or that? Anyone want to hazard a guess? Which one looks weaker to you? This chart or this chart? Look at this candle. That's right. You're right, genius. That's right, Wendy. So your preferred short on strength is going to be cable. You always want to be short the weakness. Of course, we've cleaned out a lot of stops, but there are still many to go. You start looking longer term. Lots of stops on the way down. And actually, from a fundamental perspective, I've been reading that UK banks have more exposure. I wouldn't chase the downside here, though. There'll be a rally to sell. That UK banks have more exposure to this crisis than European banks. So, right, they took out all the stops on this decline. From when we talked about it last week, looking for just a swing trade to 62.50 was my target, exceeded it by a bit. That's right. Sit and wait now. That is such a lot of wisdom. It takes a lot of discipline to do that, genius. And sometimes the right trade is no trade. You can't be afraid of missing something. There will always be another bus coming around the corner. Agree? It's difficult for me to be looking at my screen and not pull the trigger. It's much easier to get in a trade than to get out of a trade. And Jesse Livermore has a saying. In fact, hold on, let me get it. I want you guys to copy this. That was worth the wait. Read that. If you can master that, you're going to be an excellent trader. That's the key. That's about patience and discipline. Right there. Right above, the script. The big money is made by the sitting and the waiting, not the thinking. Wait until all the factors are in your favor before making the trade. Okay. There it is. Copy it and put it on your desk. Okay, so everyone pretty clear that we have, the cable has some problems here? That if you get good bear market rallies, that the probabilities favor lower prices based upon what's happening in the daily. I'd call that pretty decisive and compelling. Okay, so we may be entering some type of acceleration phase. Takes you down to 58 and eventually down to 53. So, Pinkert's pretty negative cable. Okay? Everyone have the drift on that? Move over to US dollar yen. Guess I have to refresh every time I change. Now, I have a long-term negative bias in yen because I think these lows are going to be taken out. And I actually think down the road this low may be retested. The reason being, it was a confirmed low. Everyone understand the difference between a low that is confirmed and a low that is not confirmed. If this low was not confirmed, the RSI reading would have been above a previous RSI reading. If it's confirmed, it's making a new low while price is making a new low. Okay? Get some amens in the room? Oh, NASCO, you like the WD GAN? You think he was better? Well, yeah, he didn't commit suicide. So yes, he was better. And I do like, what's my favorite WD GAN saying? You remember, NASCO? If you don't learn how to change your mind, you won't have any change left. Write that down. If you don't learn how to change your mind, you won't have any change left. Empty pockets. Okay? But short term, I view this as a successful retest in the end here. And I think there are a lot of buy stops above the market. Of course, I agree. There's tons of sell stops under this low and this low. But I'm just looking for maybe one more push up towards this line. Back to above these highs. I think everyone that's looking for a washout has their buy stops here. So I think there's potential for these highs to be taken out and maybe head up towards the 8170 level. But the big trade is going to be after this rally, looking to get short, maybe up in here, and looking for a washout under all of these lows. There's going to be a ton of sell stops here. Okay? Right now, I think there's some buy stops that have to be cleaned out. I don't think there's enough bullishness here yet. So I'm looking for a pop, and part of this has to do with my bias in the dollar for now, because this would be a risk aversion trade, just like US dollar Swiss. I think we put in a low here today. I'd call this, at least for now, a successful retest of this low. And I think we have a chance to trade 84.60 and possibly even challenge these highs in the coming days and weeks before it becomes a better short. 81.42. Okay, it's possible. But couldn't we get 84.60 first? And even 85 first? Just like you could be a long-term bear in yen, and we could get a 100 pip rally here. And I agree, because we didn't really have, although we had momentum divergence down here, it was weak, and this rally was weak. But I'm thinking that this could be A, B, C for A, and this is B, and we have a C rally coming. What do you mean by 70s? Okay. Well, I think you're going to have a better shorting opportunity. Okay. I know it's been a pretty good washout in Euro USD. Right. Pretty good washout. So all I'm talking about is a little swing trade. And I wasn't impressed with the rally at all. Okay. In fact, last week I was talking about it. So anyway, here we are in U.S. dollar Swiss. So with my take on the dollar, until the S&Ps wash out under that 200-day moving average, I like the long side of the dollar, which means I like the long side of Swiss, U.S. dollar Swiss. And I think there's some pretty good stops above here, above here, above here. Ton of stops here. But what a rally will actually do is embolden bottom pickers, and then you're going to have a ton of sell stops here and under the low of the move as we are on our way. There'll be more people with sell stops after this rally because they'll be emboldened that they have a bottom. And then eventually we'll head towards Genius's targets. Okay? Okay, gold. I actually had a 1557 number which was based upon this formation here. It was a wedge, and that's what it measured. I'm thinking gold comes off with the dollar rally. Can't buy gold up here. U.S. traders are not allowed to trade gold? I didn't know that. And here's the interesting, we have a failing rally here in Aussie. Had a nice bounce. Think it's headed down. I'm basically a dollar bull again. I thought there might be a chance for one more new high. I was positive last week when we were here. Nice rally. Aussie looks worse. So right now you're talking, last week you were talking to someone who was short-term bearish a dollar. Now I'm bullish a dollar. And remember, the key questions to ask yourself is, where are the sell stops, where are the buy stops? And you do that by saying, if I was long, where would I place my sell stop? Most likely under today's low. Any questions before I say goodbye to everyone? Okay, thank you very much for your time. I wish everyone good fortune. The MA, Wendy, is a 21 EMA. I know. You're welcome. You're welcome, Crystal, Keller, Wendy. Good luck to you guys. Good fortune. Remember, don't just count your pips. Count your blessings. Okay? I sound tired? Okay. Thank you, Matthias. Adinda, thank you. Say hello to everyone for me. Adios.